What is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode ranking the top 15 wide receivers in fantasy football heading into 2024. Little amped up because before we just started recording, we did our draft order. So officially figured out where we're drafting. So now we have to do all the mock drafts, figure out, who's going to be there, who we're going to have to reach for, all that good stuff. So Shovit, how are you feeling knowing you're drafting numero dos?
I'm feeling pretty good because at this point, I know that CMC is probably going to go number one. So I get to pick a receiver of my choosing, and you guys will figure out who my number one receiver is. So it's a perfect segue.
Sorry to ruin it so quickly.
Dang. Yeah. Okay, we're in for a surprise then in that case, but it'll be fun.
George Pickens.
George Pickens, number one overall. Yes. No, it wouldn't be that, but he'll be there somewhere. So now I'm excited.
What about you, Shishot, getting to draft 11?
Dude, Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, buckle up. It's about to be. That's honestly like having three people play at the same time because you lose no points. You get every snap is a point in some form. It's pretty interesting strategy, but I'm sure you're going to miss out on a lot of valuable running backs and wide receivers if you do that.
Yeah, taking Lamar second round.
Yeah,
scary to do.
Very scary.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun as always. Drafting in the middle, sandwiched by people that know their fantasy football. So, I'm expecting to get sniped by Onno left and right because he always seems to be the one that snipes. But that's what makes it fun. Talking about the receivers again, I thought this was very challenging. So many freaking receivers. You just forget. I'm like, this guy is like wide receiver 30. What? Like, it's insane the depth there is at receiver. It was so hard not to really go chalk. I wanted to deviate from like the norm so badly, but a lot of these guys that I wanted to put in the top 15, I'm just completely projecting on something that hasn't happened yet. So it just made it really difficult for me. I'll be interested to see where you guys have these people and where we differ. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it off. Shovit, you are starting us off with 15 through 11.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so number 15, I'm going to start off with Nico Collins. Okay, so I think that out of the three-headed monster, he's the guy that's going to shine on this Houston Texans explosive offense that I'm expecting this year. He just signed a 3-year contract, and don't forget that he also finished like wide receiver 6, I believe, last year too, right? Stephon Diggs is in the mix, but Stephon Diggs' contract is set to be a free agent after this year. So Houston Texans are saying that Nico Collins is our guy after signing that 3-year contract. And to top it off, the most important thing is that when CJ Stroud threw the ball to Nico Collins, that had the highest passer rating when targeted to Nico Collins, right? 133.7. So there's a trust between them. So I think that Nico Collins should be a guy that will produce in terms of the best fantasy top 15 on the Houston Texans team. Number 14, I have DJ Moore. Finished actually I messed up last time. I said Nico Collins finished 6th last year. DJ Moore finished 6th last year. Nico Collins finished top 10, I believe. Had career highs in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns, fantasy points. Super underrated. He can really do it all. Yak monster as well. I think another 90 catches, 1,300 yards is not out of the question. I understand Keenan Allen's there. I understand Rome Odunze is there. But he did that with Justin Fields for like 10 games, and a couple of games Fields was out. With Caleb Williams, we're saying that he's a real deal. So I'm expecting similar stats for DJ Moore this year. 13, I've got Puka Nacua. Broke rookie receiving yards for yards and receptions. However, he's this low for me because when Kupp was there, his points per game was 15 points per game, and it was 22 when Kupp wasn't there, right? So there's definitely a regression, and Cooper Kupp is coming back more healthy than he was last year. So there's certainly a bit of regression, I think, on Puka's part. So I have him 13, but still, top 15. Number 12, Drake London. Better quarterback situation, the best quarterback he's had in his entire career. The Falcons have a new offensive coordinator that's coming from that Rams Sean McVay system. So I think that will bode well for Drake London, who's got the athleticism as well. So I'm expecting breakout year. And lastly, number 11, I've got DK Metcalf. New offensive coordinator and Ryan Grubb from Washington Huskies, expected to be good for the passing attack. He used 3 or more receivers 81% of the time with the Huskies last year. So I'm expecting Seattle to be a better passing team. They finished last year, by the way, with less than 1,000 plays altogether. So I'm expecting that to come back up. And I think that's going to bode well for DK Metcalf so that he can finish top 15 this year because of the new offensive coordinator in Seattle Seahawks.
all that, finishing last and all that, and DK was wide receiver 16. So I
Right.
definitely like the projection that there should be an uptick.
Real quick, DJ Moore just signed a new contract for $110 million with $82 million guaranteed for 4 years.
Damn.
So I might just change my ranking real quick. No,
Not underrated for in the Chicago land, so they know what they
Yeah.
have with
Oh,
their
for sure.
receiver.
All right, I will go 15 through 11. Number 15, DK Metcalf. Similar reasons that Shovit just mentioned. Again, wide receiver 16 last year when Seattle was one of the worst passing offenses in all of football. Like you said, new offensive coordinator, used to using a lot of receivers, used to passing the football. So, and rumblings out of the offseason in the training camp for the Seahawks is that they're going to try to use DK Metcalf more. We've been preaching this for years. Why can't they? Why don't they? What's the deficiencies in DK Metcalf? Certainly there are, right? He's not the same level of route runner that can get open like a Justin Jefferson, but he's so athletically gifted, so big, so fast, and so strong that we've wanted them to use him in different ways. So if they truly intend to do that, a wide receiver 16 position last year in a down year for that offense, I definitely think top 15 is a possibility. Number 14, Jalen Waddle, number 2 receiver for the Miami Dolphins, barely sneaks in here. And in a down year last year, had 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was hurt. He played 14 games. The reason why this guy is not a top 10 wide receiver every single year is simply because of Tyreek Hill. So I think as a wide receiver 2, he is the most productive as they come. Maybe if you want to argue Devontae Smith, but the explosiveness, another year in this offense, another year comfortable. The fact that they added more faster weapons around to open things up for the passing game even more. Jalen Waddle, again, in a down year last year, had 1,000 yards. And I just think he's Tyreek Hill light. So if Tyreek Hill isn't on that team, we're talking about Jalen Waddle in a completely different vein. He is 14 for me. Number 13, Chris Olave, target machine, man. What do we love? What do we started to respect more out of receivers? We used to grow up thinking, 40-yard dash time, 4.3 speed. God, this guy's going to be awesome. None of that matters. Ideally, Justin Jefferson was the 5th, 6th receiver drafted in his class simply because he didn't have any exceptional physical attributes. But why does that matter when the guy can literally get open and demand targets? And that is Chris Olave. If there's a guy that's going to get open and get targets, it's this guy. Another year in that offense. My only fear with Chris Olave peaking or getting really high in rankings is I'm pretty high on Rashid Shaheed. I think he could have a breakout year. He's a really, really big deep threat. He could take a lot of, big gain chunk plays, touchdowns away from Olave. But again, I gravitate towards guys that I know on every given play is giving their receiver or their quarterback the ability to get them the football because they're open. And that is Chris Olave. Guy demanded, I think, 25% target share last year, down year for that offense. Again, just demands targets. So I think production is going to come. Number 12, Mike Evans. I am not going to disrespect this man any longer. If he falls off this year, so be it. But we've talked about him falling off for years and years and years and years, and it just doesn't happen. Consistent king is what I like to call him. So he is going to come in and do basically everything he's been doing. 1,000 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns, another year with that offense. He comes in at number 12. And then number 11 for me is Drake London. Newcomer in this list, new quarterback, new offensive coordinator. They're finally going to be able to utilize what he's good at, get him the football in space, create big plays, use that, like you said, that Rams offensive scheme that's going to get the receivers wide open. Kirk Cousins is as accurate as a quarterback in the NFL comes, so I believe Drake London is poised to have a breakout year. 15 through 11, I have DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, and Drake London.
Solid list. I would like to have any of those guys on my team. But 3 of those guys that you mentioned are honorable mentions for me. That's funny. So Waddle didn't make my list. Evans didn't make my list. Probably going to pay for that one, but just too much youth this year. I feel like, and DK and Nico, 4 guys didn't make my list. There's just, this is ridiculous. This is tough. This is way tougher than any other choices to be made. But number 15, I am on the other page, Shovit. I just believe in dogs. Like, some people are just born to play football, and it doesn't matter Nico Collins on that team. It doesn't matter the target share that he had last year. When you have players like Stephon Diggs, like I don't know if he fits into many people's top 5s, but he fits into my top 5, and he's sitting at 5, nice and pretty as far as the most gifted wide receivers in the league that can do pretty much whatever you ask of them. So I think people like this are very hard to grade and probably going to be missing out on a lot of people's top 15, but you just have to believe. You just have to. Like, you've seen what this guy can do from day 1 till currently. And there's a reason he is who he is, big diva, whatever, but he brings this presence to the team that, it can't be guarded. It just can't be guarded. So I think that's just going to expand the offense more. Yeah, you're going to lose out on a lot of touches because there's a lot of mouths to feed there. But I think throughout the season, we'll slowly see what it means to have a true number one security blanket that can do anything you ask of them. It's easily Nico can take that spot, but that's why it's 15 and not much higher. Puka Nacua comes in at 14 for me. Again, we saw what he did last year, and I don't think they're going to deviate away from that. And Stafford is one of those leftover accurate quarterbacks that are slowly dying off. In the likes of Kirk Cousins and pretty much nobody else in the league, and maybe Aaron Rodgers, that can't really move around too much, but get the job done from the air. And when you have quarterbacks like that are in a offense like this, anything is possible, and you can feed two wide receivers pretty dang well. So I think we're just going to see a lot of rinse and repeat from this offense. I know offensive schemes are going to be a little bit twisted, but I think it's safe to say this is a pretty safe pick for a wide receiver too. Brandon Ayuk is number 13 for me. Huge diva, but again, it's all about reliability. At the end of the day, is your guy going to get receptions? Is your guy going to get used on third downs? Does he have a complete route tree? Does he have an injury history? Have we seen him do it in the past? All those things matter, and all those things were considered when making this top 15. And I think all those things, if there's anybody out here that can actually do all these, maybe even the injury history concern or not having one, Brandon Ayuk is pretty safe as far as like traumatic season-ending injuries goes, and as far as usage goes, third down reliability, route tree, he's got it all. So, if there wasn't a guy named CMC, I think we'd see a huge uptick here. He might even go up to 4 or surpass Jamar Chase's and all that stuff. All that is possible in the right offense, but unfortunately, this is a run-first offense, and it goes through CMC. But still, making it a 13 in an offense like this is a big deal. Cooper Kupp comes in at number 12. I have not forgotten, man. It's one of these things that I don't know if anyone notices the trends, but I don't forget like the legendary people. Like, year after year, I got Antonio Brown when he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just continue to do Antonio Brown things. Like, there's not as big of a steep drop off as we think there are when it comes to receivers. They're one of the positions where you can be 30 years old and still produce. You can be 32 and still produce. It's not as steep of a drop off as running backs and other positions are considered. So when you've seen the complete level some of these players like Diggs and Kupp have played, it's really hard to put I don't know, Michael Pittman over them. It's a little tough because we've seen what Pittman can do. It's just somebody to consider. But again, at the end of the day, you want one guy to run a route and deliver the ball to him. Who do you trust? And I think at the end of the day, that's the same process quarterbacks go through. So I think Kupp will still get his, despite this injury history. I think we maybe with this day and age, I think it's safe to go down that route because we've seen the upside, and still Matthew Stafford, still the same offense. So I'm willing to take that risk that low. Chris Olave comes up for the same reasons you guys have mentioned. One of the only true wide receivers in an offense with a bunch of gadget things going on. So I think as far as reliability, the 5 criteria I mentioned earlier, another player that hits every single one, and we saw what he did last year. So lot of rinse and repeat, just different rankings. So that's my 5 at the bottom of the order.
Nice. There were some guys that you guys mentioned that I didn't. I will say I did not mention Mike Evans. I saw reports that Chris Godwin will be playing in slot and getting more targets this year, and was a little bit concerned about the touchdowns being the factor of his fantasy points last year. So I don't have Mike Evans, and I hope this doesn't come bite me back like it did last year. And Olave is also another guy I'm a little bit concerned about. I feel like with Derek Carr in that mix, and with the receivers, like I've been down that Olave route, and sometimes it works and a lot of times it doesn't for me, in terms of like consistency in a week in, week out basis. So Olave is the guy that I'm out on, but Sweetheart, I'll let you add anything if you want to on that 15-11 round.
I don't have Cooper Kupp in my top 15. I don't have any of the Texans receivers in my top 15. I think you guys are incredibly undervaluing Puka Nacua, but I'll get to that when I get there. But other than that, I'm trying to think. I think it's all pretty safe. Yeah, you guys don't have Jalen Waddle. He's like right around that border.
Yeah.
But no, I think we're good. Let's hear your
cool.
10 through 6.
All right. So 10 through 6, number 10, I've got one of my favorite receivers from this draft, for this year, Christian Watson, wide receiver number 1 for the
Holy
Packers.
shit.
What?
Yeah, Christian
Holy
Watson,
shit.
weeks 5 to 13, led the team in target share, yards per route run, and red zone targets. And if the hamstring issue is not a concern, then I think that it's his throne for the taking. So Christian Watson is going to finish top 10 in my opinion. You guys can give me your reservations for that after this. But number 9.
Sounds like you already gave it yourself.
No, I mean,
Nothing else for me to add.
the hamstring issue. Hey,
Yeah, it's a big deal.
it is, but they've leveled it out now, is what they're saying. They figured it out. He's not going to get injured, and if he's on the field, then he's a force to be reckoned with. And his price is pretty cheap too, right? Like 9th and 10th round. He's not a 5th round guy or higher. Number 9, I've got Marvin Harrison. So last year the Cardinals had the second most plays per game under Kyler last year, 68 plays per game. So I'm expecting a high volume offense, poor defense. So, high power offense, poor, terrible defense means a lot of garbage points. And Marvin Harrison should be, as the wide receiver 1, the benefactor of that. Number 8, I've got Garrett Wilson. He was 3rd in the league last year in air yard percentage, 4th in total targets, and that's with Zach Wilson. So with Aaron Rodgers, a better offensive line, I think that, given that he already went back-to-back, had 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, I think with Aaron Rodgers, it's just another reason why Garrett Wilson can be productive and finish top 10 this year. Number 7, I have A.J. Brown. New offensive coordinator and Keelan Moore should be able to fix that Philly offense. And even when the Eagles have been a run-heavy team, A.J. Brown has always finished, in the top 20 or top 15 in fantasy football. So I think that with that being said, Keelan Moore as offensive coordinator, that just bodes well for A.J. Brown, can finish top 10 this year as well. And then number 6, I've got Davante Adams. He's still at the top of his game. And pair that with Gardner Minshew, who's going to be a better quarterback than what they had last year. He should also have a better year. A guy that commands the target share. He's going to be the sole guy that's getting the ball. I know Myers is there as well, but I don't think that there's going to be a regression for Davante Adams. So top 10 finisher, maybe top 6 for next year as well.
Christian Watson in the top 10. I mean, I don't.
Holy shit! I've seen a lot of things.
Yeah, that you got to be the one, shove it. So I mean, you got to
be the one
for putting him there. I don't even think he's a top 20 receiver. I don't even think he's the best receiver on his team. But we've already kind of been down that road.
There's so many mouths to feed on that offense that it makes me so nervous to have him that high up. It's just tough.
The problem with Christian Watson is he's just not a complete receiver. So if we're expecting his production to be top 10, the dude would need to catch probably like 5 or 6 70-yard bombs in the season to make up for him not getting 12 targets a game, because he's not going to get 10 to 12 targets a game. He doesn't get open like that he doesn't get open on intermediate routes like that to get 10 to 12 targets a game. So it's just not in his arsenal, in his game to do that. So that's my fear, is the volume is just not going to warrant that again, unless he's catching 5 different 80-yard touchdown passes this. Yeah, exactly. Which again, he's fast enough. He can get over the top. It is possible. But man, oh man, that was definitely the biggest fork in the road. I don't even know the right way to say it, but
he's been efficient his whole career. So I'm expecting that efficiency to translate to next year.
All right, that's fair. All right, number 10 for me, Marvin Harrison Jr. I expected this guy to be a 2nd-round wide receiver in fantasy football before he was even drafted into the NFL. There's not very many receivers that come in that are as complete as this guy, a la maybe Jamar Chase back when he got drafted. But this guy can do everything on day one. He's going to be the number 1 receiver on an offense, like you said, that threw the football the second most. They played from behind quite a bit. All of the numbers, everything tells me that he's going to be productive. He's going to help out Kyler. Kyler's going to help him out. And Trey McBride will also help take away some of the defense from Marvin Harrison Jr. I have him at number 10. Number 9, Davante Adams, 33% target share last year. Those are numbers we like to see. But as a Davante Adams owner, even that 33% target share had weeks where he was getting me 0 points. So that boomer bust potential, the thing that Davante Adams never actually had as a fantasy football player, he developed last year, and it's not his fault. It's more so the quarterback play. Now, I'm not convinced that Gardner Minshew is gonna get him 17 weeks straight, week in and week out, consistent points. That's not gonna happen, in my opinion. It's not because Adams isn't good enough. It's because that offense isn't gonna be good enough. So that is my biggest fear with him being closer to like top 5, but still the alpha. I mean, we all watched the wide receiver documentary, and it seems like this guy is the guy. And I mean, we already knew that, but it became even more apparent that like the offense only goes as far as Davante Adams goes with that offense. So I hope he's better. I hope he's a top 5 guy this year. Nothing would make me happier. Number 8, AJ Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles. Same thing. He's going to be productive. He's the number 1 receiver. He's explosive. He's electric. My only thing is I'm not completely convinced that Kellen Moore is coming in there and making this offense earth-shatteringly better. He had Dak Prescott, who is a really, really good, accurate pocket quarterback, and now you have Jalen Hurts, who is none of that, right? He's not the same type of quarterback that Dak is. So the production, the way Kellen Moore is calling the offense for Dak to throw the football to CeeDee Lamb is a little bit different, in my opinion, than how Jalen Hurts is going to try to get the football to AJ Brown. So how CeeDee Lamb became number 1 receiver, I just don't see that same translation. I think it'll be a little bit less, just because Jalen Hurts doesn't have that same level of being able to pass the football that Dak does, which is something I never thought I'd say, but it is the reality that we live in. Number 7, I have Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua comes in at number 7, 29% target share, was averaging 15.3 points per game last year, which is 4th among receivers. He is 1st in the NFL in yards after catch, man. Nobody would think that when you look at Puka Nacua, but this guy just does not go down. He breaks tackles. He is extremely physical. Cooper Kupp, he's basically like Cooper Kupp reincarnated 78 years later, right? I mean, like literally that's what it feels like to me. Fountain of Youth, 23 years old. The man's going to have a really long career. I agree. Kupp is a legend. Kupp has been a number 1 receiver in fantasy football in the NFL for years, but I just think at 31 and at 23, the durability factor of Puka being able to break tackles, run through tackles, they're just going to use him a little bit more because they want Kupp to last. They want that longevity for 17 games and for the playoffs. So using Puka makes more sense than using Kupp, which may not happen, but that's why I have him top 7. Number 6, Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. That's all you need to know. This guy's incredibly talented. What I expected him to produce last year before Aaron Rodgers got hurt is exactly what I expect to happen this year. So he is number 6 for me. We will see Garrett Wilson truly emerge into the tier 1 wide receivers. So I have number 10, Marvin Harrison Jr., Davante Adams, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I got 4 of those players in the same 5 area, but just in different order. I'm starting off with Davante Adams at 10 also, just because for the same reasons you guys have mentioned or you have mentioned. It's not an offense you're excited about. There could be a situation where you're down 23-7 and they shut him down in the 4th quarter. Like it's a very possible scenario, especially because he's not Puka Nacua age, right? They're going to want to save him for the next possible game. And he could just throw a tantrum and not even play the last 2 games. Like I'm sensing a lot of that kind of stuff. It's unfortunate that he's in this situation because if you played for the Dolphins, if you played for the Vikings, if you played for the Cowboys, if you played for the Bengals, like there is no question.
Top 3.
You already know how I feel about him. It's just not his, it's not everything he can control. Marvin Harrison Jr. comes in at 9. Again, Shobit hit this right on the head. Bad offense. They have nothing to lose kind of offense. Bad defense. They have nothing to lose kind of offense. They're just still figuring out their identity. And what better way to figure this out than move the chains with somebody that will separate and has good hands. He's going to come in and just be a star immediately. Drake London comes in at 8. Just Kirk Cousins reasons. He's going to find him in the open field. Drake London has shown he can play deep. He can play short. He can pretty much do everything. He's a bigger guy. He's closer to AJ Brown than he is to like Jamar Chase, as far as physicality and size goes. So I think that's something also Kirk Cousins hasn't really had as far as like a complete deep threat type of a receiver. So I think we're going to see a lot of big bombs, 80 yards, that big play type of thing. And I think they're going to try to use some of these other guys, multiple running backs, multiple tight ends to play more inside. I think they're going to try to protect London long and just go deep outs, deep ends. It's just going to be a lot of big plays coming. AJ Brown also comes in at 7 for me. Again, changes in the offense, huge, right? We just don't know when it comes to offensive coordinators being changed. But I do think, AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb aren't really comparable in the way they play. AJ Brown gets closer to Drake London than he is to CeeDee Brown too, in my opinion, than CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, those guys are in their category of their own because of how open they can get and how fluid, and they're like gazelles out there, right? AJ Brown is no gazelle. He's just a dominant, like Megatron type of figure that people just don't want to face in multiple situations. And you're not going to see AJ Brown running like a quick in and go out because he's just not fast enough to separate from those cornerbacks. So he will be used in a specific way. I am hearing though they're changing up the offense like a lot. Like I'm hearing a lot of weird play calling and like option plays with Saquon is already happening in training camp, and maybe they're just maybe they're altering Hurts completely because they figured out like, yo, you got a glaring weakness, and that's passing the ball. We got to fix that, right? So I think they may be coming with a different approach, and that's why I have AJ Brown a little bit higher than London and Harrison, because in reality, I'm way more confident in Harrison and London catching more balls, or just, there's just more of a blanket there than this AJ Brown situation. AJ Brown's great, don't get me wrong, but a change in offensive scheme and change in everything about the identity of the team from this like force that just keeps moving forward to like maybe a passing situation, kind of like how the Cowboys had it. It questions me, and it makes me not want to go that extra mile to make him a little bit higher. Number 6 for me is also Garrett Wilson. A lot of potential, right? It's just potential. Last year, I had a lot of people had him in their first round, right? Like a 9th overall, 8th overall, 7th overall type of situation. And that's what should have happened. But the injury situation really messed it up. And the fact that he talks back, the fact that he's arguing on the sidelines in training camp against one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he's not really backing down. You can tell Aaron Rodgers the one that kind of like takes the back seat, because he's probably right. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been in camp. He hasn't been practicing with them. He doesn't know Garrett Wilson's tendencies as much as the backup quarterback does. So he's probably just pissed. But I think it'll all gel up. If Davante Adams doesn't get this trade to New York, Garrett Wilson's ceiling is number 1. Like, plain and simple. You got Breece Hall back there with that offensive line with one of the greatest play action quarterbacks of all time. It's just like, who do you guard? Right? Garrett Wilson equals Breece Hall as far as legitness, as far as like maximum potential. They could both be number 1. So again, a lot of mouths to be, not many mouths to be fed in that offense, but we know 2 guys are going to get theirs significantly. So Garrett Wilson, 1 to 6, make your pick. All these other guys before him are just too studly for me to change that.
Solid. All right. With that, I can go to 5 to 1, where you guys can hear my number 1 pick and figure out what my second pick is going to be, basically. Number 5, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown last year, less than 15 points, only 3 times. And 14 out of 17 games this year are indoor, right? So just something to kind of look out for. I think that he's going to be the focal point of this offense, just a consistent guy that gets you points and commands the targets in this team. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, number 5. Number 4, I've got CeeDee Lamb. This one was tough for me, and I have him number 4. Here's a stat. No wide receiver 1 has finished wide receiver 1 since 2017. Oh, I think you might have mentioned this last time, actually, until Antonio Brown did it last year. Or in 2017. Antonio Brown was the last guy to finish wide receiver 1 twice. So I don't expect CeeDee Lamb to do that this year, just based on the data. And so I have him number 4. And you can mix 1 to 4 any way you want, but I have him as 4. Number 3, I've got Justin Jefferson. With Nick Mullins last year, 22 points per game, he gets paid. And he's also a main part of that offense. I don't think he's not, in 8 games, he had 1,000 yards, right? Just in 8 games. So if he's playing all 17 games, Justin Jefferson can finish number 1, but I have him number 3 just because of that quarterback situation. Just to have him there, honestly. Number 2, Tyreek Hill, back-to-back 1,700-yard season, explosive offense.
Doubling down.
What can you expect from Tyreek Hill, right? Like, he's just been there, done that. When in Kansas City did it, Miami Dolphins doing it in a much explosive offense, if you want to say. But I have Tyreek Hill number 2. Number 1, I have Mr. Jamar Chase.
You're just a Jamar Chase guy. So there's always like, never mind. Go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt you.
With a healthy Joe Burrow, right? With a healthy Joe Burrow, he can easily finish as a top receiver. I think, Tyreek Hill, 1,700-yard season. Jamar Chase, 2,000-yard season, right? That's not out of the question here. No. With a healthy Burrow, healthy Chase, it's definitely possible. So I've got Chase as the number 1 guy this year.
Cool. Interesting. Shovit coming with all the twists and turns. I respect. Similar number 5 for me. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 games with 100 yards receiving. He was hurt for like half of the season, played through it. Doesn't matter. PPR machine. Another guy that you know, every week there is going to be
Mhm.
guaranteed production, just guaranteed production. You don't even have to worry. You don't even have to look at his line item on your fantasy team because you know at the end of the week he is going to have produced points for you.
Yep.
He is automatic. Like you mentioned, that I didn't even know that Showbit 14 of 17 indoors. That really makes me rethink that drafting of Jared Goff really late because he could be a freak. He was a
He's
freak
been good
indoors.
indoors.
So that's why I have him number 5. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the most underappreciated receiver, but I think people are slowly starting to appreciate him. Number 4, Justin Jefferson kills me to make this man number 4. But the reality of the situation is our quarterback has gotten worse. And I understand that Justin Jefferson can produce with basically nobody, but we can't make catchable targets present for him. Like the quarterback has to make targets catchable for him. Sam Darnold struggles mightily with intermediate throws. He's a really good deep ball thrower, but intermediate throws, he's not the best. I don't know what that's going to look like, to be honest. So it's nothing other than the fact that we have a new quarterback that, you know, has a history of basically being a bust. So what are we expecting? The best version of himself will still make Justin Jefferson, you know, top 3. The worst version of himself could still make Justin Jefferson easily top 10, top 5 because he's that talented. That's why he's number 4. Number 3, Jamar Chase led the league in red zone targets last year. So he is not just last year, led the league in red zone targets the last 2 seasons. This man in the red zone, Joe Burrow is a smart man. What does he do in the red zone? Throws the football to his best fucking receiver. Every other quarterback, take goddamn notes. Your best receiver should have the most targets in the red zone. That seems like the most obvious thing that could possibly exist. Well, the Bengals are not shy about that. They have Higgins. They have other receivers, and they're like, nope, sorry, dude. We have a number 1 bona fide stud. We're going to throw him the football in the red zone. Like you said, healthy Joe Burrow. This offense absolutely clicks. Their offensive line got a little bit better. All we've been searching for is Burrow to get a little bit longer protection, which means Jamar Chase can run further, deeper routes, and we just know how much of a home run threat he is. So he comes in at number 3. Number 2, this was really tough for me. Number 2 is Tyreek Hill. Number 2 comes in at Tyreek Hill comes in at number 2 for me because simply because of the fact that I think CeeDee Lamb has zero competition for targets, like zero, next to zero. CeeDee Lamb's running back got worse. His running back got older. Zeke Elliott is old and sucks. You have Rico Dowdle. Who's their number 2 receiver? So Brandon Cooks. Who's their number 3 receiver? Can you guys tell me? I don't think you can tell me, which means there is nobody competing for targets with CeeDee Lamb. Absolutely nobody. Dak is in a contract year, so he has to ball out. I don't care about wins, losses. You know how I feel about the Cowboys, but one thing that I know is there is zero competition for this man getting targets. So to me, that is the only reason Tyreek Hill is 2 and CeeDee Lamb is 1. Very, very close. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was on pace for a 2,000-yard season before he got hurt. I was chanting MVP for Tyreek Hill, so I understand Tyreek Hill. I understand that, but I just think no competition means no competition, and that's why CeeDee Lamb is number 1.
Nice. All really, really good points. You can't refute any of those points. Yeah, this year's going to be the year of the receiver. I don't know about the Chinese calendar, but we got to change it to the year of the receiver because, I mean, our quarterbacks are very similar. Our running backs are very similar, but shit, bro, we got some seriously different wide receivers here on who is going to be the best or who's going to be top 3 even. I am starting off my number 5 with Amon-Ra. We all have Amon-Ra at our 5, and we're all going to eat shit because of just many reasons. He's going to end up 1 or 2. I have this very, very strong feeling that, you know, this man, after watching that documentary, it just solidified everything even more. Like the hard work, the dedication, the agility, the power, the speed. It's all there. It's all there. They love him. What more do you want, right? Like I understand competition is huge, Sweetcar. That's a really good point. Playmakers, sometimes playmakers make big plays, right? And he is that guy. Number 4, Jamar Chase is at 4 for me. It is more of there's other guys that have shown me more what have you done lately kind of a situation. Yeah, the targets are there. Yeah, there's not much competition. T. Higgins is also there, frustrated on the other end. I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't think it's going to hinder Jamar Chase. If anything, it's going to help him more. But one point we haven't made is that there is a new offensive coordinator. I don't know much about the scenario, to be honest, but I am certain of the other 3 players. That's the main, that was really it. I'm always big about schemes. It really matters because you just need to know what are they going to do on third downs? What are they going to do with, in goal line situation? Is that going to change now? Because clearly, why was he not top wide receiver if he got all those targets in the red zone? There's some things that they're going to tweak, adjust here and there. And I think just for the certainty factor, he sits at 4. But I mean, again, right? Like Garrett Wilson, anybody from Garrett Wilson and up could easily finish 1. I don't think AJ Brown will, just because the touchdowns aren't going to be there. I think these other guys are going to have a lot more opportunities because of competition. But Jamar Chase, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. CeeDee Lamb gets in at 3 for me. This guy like gave me a trophy in multiple leagues last year, right? I actually bought a Tyreek Hill fake replica or whatever, and then I returned it and got CeeDee Lamb after he got that touchdown on that last play. So that there's a sense of inflation in the statistics because of that one play alone, and I might be the only one that's aware of that because how drastically it affected my jersey buying tendencies. So yeah, I have a Cowboys jersey in my closet. It may never come out, but I'm just buying one for every year I win a championship. So it's going to get crowded in there. CeeDee Lamb, it's just, every point you guys have made is all accurate. It's just Justin Jefferson number 2 with a little bit worse hands. Like that's just how I look at the situation. And if you get the opportunity to play with a quarterback, Black Kirk Cousins per se, it's just copy paste, right? It's like similar methods, similar strategies, get the ball to JJ and CeeDee Lamb as much as possible. So for that reason, just copy paste. He just doesn't have as good hands as the next guy. Justin Jefferson comes in at 2 for me. We got Jamar Chase, we got Amon-Ra, and we got CeeDee Lamb behind him. But at the end of the day, like he is the new age alpha wide receiver in the league, and I think there's a lot of points to be made here. Number one, I think, is the separation he creates is different than all these other guys because he's got these long legs and he's got the speed along with the separation, right? Amon-Ra doesn't have those legs. Jamar Chase doesn't have those legs. CeeDee Lamb does, but his hands kind of suck. Like they're just not the best. So JJ has that quality that these number 3, number 4, number 5 do not. Garrett Wilson may probably have to those qualities. We just haven't seen it exposed yet or shown yet. But JJ, we have seen that this man has speed. He can create separation. He can create playmaking plays, and there is no competition. Same reason as CeeDee Lamb. We don't even have a number 2 wide receiver right now. There is no number 2 wide receiver because at least a couple of games we're going to lose. What's his name?
Addison.
We're losing him for a couple of games. It's going to start off hot, just delivering the ball to JJ. He just got a big fat contract. I mean, I don't see the downside. Obviously, you can teeter-totter between CeeDee Lamb and JJ, and you can have Jamar Chase in that conversation. Definitely. But I think at the end of the day, we know what he has. It's going to be target heavy. He's going to lead the league in target share. It's just going to be that type of offense. And I'm not too worried about Sam Darnold. I'm really not. I think delivering the ball in open spaces, any quarterback can do. And I think we have our offensive line built in a way where he can sit in the pocket and think for a good amount of time. And he can move around. It's not like Sam Darnold is a very stoic quarterback in the pocket. He can get around there. He can move around. We've seen him create 50-yard runs in the past, and I don't think that was too long ago. So I think JJ is going to be silently right back up top. I think we're going to see him at 1 or 2. And then I got Tyreek Hill at number 1. Just there's really not much to be said. I know there's some sense of competition, but he had competition last year. There's competitions every year. This offense is just too firepowered, and they don't ever slow down. This isn't a type of offense we've seen other teams play where you play to your weaknesses. You play to the other team's strengths. None of that. They don't do that. They're just all about score. And what more do you want in fantasy from your receiver than just to get the ball 10 times or more and also be a big play threat, also come out of the backfield, also be the safest target on the team. There's just a lot of pluses on an offense like this. They probably run double the amount of plays as like a run first team does. So a lot of those little nitpicky things we have to think about when it comes to the top 3 because not much separate them. So you have to try to find reasons why you're picking one over the other. And for me, Tyreek Hill has shown it. I don't think the age is going to be a factor. If anything, at this age, he's probably as fast as like it probably made him from 30, how old is he? He's 32 or is he younger than that? Something like that.
I think he's 31 or 32.
In that range, but he's really
30,
plays.
He's 30.
He's 30, so he's not even that old. But he plays like he's 20, right? And if he's getting older, he's playing like he's 24. So it's like the drop in age, I'm really not concerned about, and the injury risk isn't really there, not as much, just as much as the next guy, right? So pretty confident. It doesn't get much more confident than just seeing 2 bombs of Tyreek Hill. It's like, look at this list and look at which player will give me 30 points. Like most likely to be Tyreek Hill. Are there concerns for injury why I shouldn't draft him? No. Is there competition? There is a little bit of competition, but what type of offense is he in? In an offense where competition doesn't really make sense to be a reason to drop him any lower. So all good points from all you guys. I think all 4 of our, or all 2 or all 3 of our lists 1 to 5 is very, very arguable, and I don't think there is really a wrong decision here.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. It is. It's hard. It's hard when you get down to like the best of the best to find a reason to separate one versus the other. But again, we talk about fantasy football. Maybe I'm just living the championship and living the 90-yard touchdown to CeeDee Lamb in my head over and over again, and that's why I have CeeDee Lamb number 1. But there like Tyreek Hill is incredible, but he has Jalen Waddle. Justin Jefferson is incredible, but Jordan Addison is like a really, really good number 2 receiver, right? There is no number 2 receiver. Brandon Cooks is like 35. There is no number 2 receiver on the fucking Cowboys. Like none. 0. Brandon Cooks as bad as he was last year. He's a year older, so he's worse. So yeah. I just think that there's literally no competition there. The Cowboys may not be very good. I think they're going to take a step back as a team offensively, simply because I think the defense is going to be like, okay, you have CeeDee Lamb, but there's nobody else to beat us. So maybe defenses adjust, and that allows CeeDee Lamb to be double, triple teamed. And then, it's a year where he regresses a little bit, but yeah, you can't go wrong. I think I have CeeDee Lamb ranked 1, but if I had the ability to draft between Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb, I'd be like, oh shit, I should probably take Tyreek Hill. So like that's where my head's at.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who's got the number 2 pick is going to have the hardest decision because they have to pick one out of these 4 guys, right? And so, I mean,
just trade out. Just trade out.
Honestly, if I could get the 6th pick and then the whoever drops out of these 4, if I could pick, I would probably do that.
Oh yeah, dude, that's not a bad idea either.
And then you get the next pick a lot closer, right? But I think for me, I'm looking at this, I'm like, they're very similar. Let me just get the quarterback who I trust the most. And right now, it's either Joe Burrow or Dak Prescott. And for me, it's Joe Burrow. So I'm going to go with Jamar Chase in that sense. So there is that part to it as well, where the quarterback here is the best quarterback out of all 4 of these guys and what they have.
Yeah. You are correct on that fact. So I can't dispute that Joe Burrow is better than the other 3 quarterbacks. But I think that's what's going to make this interesting. Who are some honorable mentions? So I didn't have DJ Moore, too many mouths to feed. Caleb Williams, rookie quarterback. I mean, just no guarantee that he's a top 15 finisher. Who else didn't I have? Ayuk was like right on the cusp for me. It was like 16, 17 fringe. Yeah. Just again, it's an offense where if Ayuk was the bona fide number 1, he's a top 10 receiver every single year. But when you have CMC that just is everything to everyone in that offense, it just makes it so hard with limitations to the other guys. Anybody else that you guys were like, man, I really wanted to sneak this guy in, but I couldn't?
Yeah, Christian Kirk for me.
Oh my, I thought you were going to say Christian Watson again. I was about to turn off the podcast.
I have one. I heavily debated putting Deontay Johnson at 15 actually over Stephon Diggs. I think it's just pure volume. Like he can separate. We've seen what he can do. It's not like that guy sucks from he just doesn't have the best hands in the world, but you don't really care if you're going to be on the worst team in the league. You're just the only guy. So same logic, right? It's the same logic. So I think that bumps him up pretty high up. But Evans, Nico Collins, DK, Deontay, Pittman, and Neighbors. Those are the guys I was really debating. Just there's a lot of volume to be had there.
Yeah. For me, it's Debo, Godwin, Christian Kirk, and Keon Coleman. Those are 4 guys that I'm like,
damn,
man, they could be higher, especially Debo Samuel.
For sure, yeah. Debo can do a lot.
Yeah, no, that's good. Neighbors is definitely one that intrigues me too. It's just where do you draft Neighbors knowing that Daniel Jones is his receiver or his quarterback?
Yeah. I don't think you anchor going into the draft as like I gotta leave with Neighbors, but if he's there and you're gotta reach like a 1 round, so be it. Be it. He's in the James Cook category for me. He's in the James Cook.
Okay. James Cook. I'm pretty high on James Cook, so if he's in the James Cook category for me, I need to draft Neighbors. That's the episode, guys. Those are the wide receivers. I don't know if it's just every year we're doing this. There's just better players coming into the league that it just feels deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like we were living in a tight end desolation to now I feel like there's too many good tight ends in the NFL. There's like way too many good tight ends. So many receivers. You can have your like receiving room on your fantasy team can have 3 receivers that are all number 1. And I think in a 10-team league, you could probably have like 8 teams would have 3 number 1 receivers potentially, right? So think about that because there's 30 teams, right? So it's crazy how much depth there is at the receiver position, and the ranking number 30 and ranking number 19 may only end up having like 5 to 7 points difference, in the grand scheme of things at the end of the season.
For sure. There's also one other point that this is something that we just don't think about. Not like we just don't, because there's no space to think like that. But, there's a world where the counterpart to Marvin Harrison becomes a wide receiver 1. We haven't seen anything. So same with Davante Adams. Like, we saw what happened for a short period of time there. A lot of, what's his name? Myers doing some stuff.
Kobe Myers.
I mean, right? Like there's room to be moved even in this top 15. There's like nobody's job is safe. It's just wide receivers. There's really no such thing as a pure number one in a high-powered league like this, right? Tight ends are wide receivers now. There's like very, very minimal tight ends that only block, and defenses have to take a step back in tackling. So like everybody's stats just get better on offense. So I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what happens with Stephon Diggs. I'm excited to see how Cooper Kupp survives in that offense. Chris Olave kind of dropping on a lot of people's radar. I don't know. I just don't know, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, one other knock I had on Davante Adams, not necessarily Davante Adams, is they also drafted Brock Bowers. I mean, when you're drafting a freak tight end that's like not even a tight end, he's basically a receiver, super versatile. That early, when you have so many other needs as a team, I have to imagine that dude's going to get the ball and he's going to be involved in the offense. So, just another counterpoint to the Davante Adams thing. But let us know what you guys think. Which receivers did we leave out? Which receivers, are we ranking too high, too low? Sound off in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. You can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts, socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at The Only Playbook. I am Sweetcard. That is Shovit. That is Shashot. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next week, we're doing no longer the desolation, but the plenty, the fruitful, the too many tight ends. So we're going to rank the 15 tight ends next week. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Have a fantastic rest of your day.